everyone, and a very warm welcome to this videocast, Beyond Books and Blogs, inspiring CX stories brought to you by Epic Consulting. I'm Ghulam Hasnain Ali, your host and founder at Epic Consulting. And in this series, we will bring to you the experiences and stories of customer centricity passionados who have used customer journey mapping and similar alignment diagrams like service blueprints or experience diagrams to help build customer-centric cultures and practices in their organizations. These champions and heroes of the customer's cause will share with us firsthand how and why they started journey mapping, what typical challenges they face, what do their projects look like, and most important, advice for newcomers who want to adopt this practice. Our guests will come from a variety of backgrounds, B2B space, B2C, G2C, private sector, government sector, not-for-profits, and even agencies and consultings. The whole idea is to share with you insight that is relevant to your business context. So please feel free to share your comments, suggestions, feedback on this channel, on YouTube, or on our Facebook page, or email us directly at journeymappers@epicconsulting.ae. Thank you again for watching and listening, and let's welcome our esteemed guest now today. So without further ado, let me turn to him, Daniel Ewerman. Daniel, I'll just give a short introduction. Thank you again for joining us. Daniel is, if I wanted to say uncle, it might be wrong. Daniel, you can always correct that. But he's a grand figure in journey mapping in Europe. He's been doing journey mapping for over, I think, close to 20 years now, from what I have understood. And he is also the founder of Custlance.com. That is a software used for very simple, elegant, quick to market and quick to go journey mapping for organizations, a lean solution. And he's also, of course, a dear supporter of Epic Consulting. Daniel, I have to thank you on that front again as well. And I wanted to start off our session, first of all, if you'd like to add something to the introduction, and then, why and how journey mapping? How did you start? What happened?
Yeah. Thanks for a good introduction, Ghulam. I don't want to add anything. I think you covered it greatly. But yeah, of course, you could say I'm a veteran when it comes to journey mapping, and
the right word, veteran.
I mean. How it all started. I was trained as an industrial designer, and during the 90s, and I came to the conclusion that I didn't want to fill the world with more toasters. There were enough toasters, and I understood that I could use my skills even better in services instead of making more toasters. And together with one of Sweden's big truck manufacturers, Scania, commercial vehicles, there's Scania and there's Volvo, and we were working with Scania when I did my degree, and I worked together with them, and as a freelance consultant, and we came into working with their service offerings, and we needed a way to make it as tangible as product design was. Okay. So we were thinking, what is the difference between a service and a product or a goods? And we understood that the difference is time. So you perceive one part of the product at one time and another part of the product another time. So we started to just taking the toaster apart and putting time between the different parts of the toaster. That was kind of the basic idea of trying to create.
Until the toaster is completely burnt through.
Sorry, that.
Until the toaster is completely burnt through. I have a very brown.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like you perceive something first, and then you perceive something again, and so we started to take all the interaction points in the beginning, which I sooner understood is completely the wrong way to work with this. It took me several years to understand that, but we took the interaction points and just put time between them. Okay. And that were the first embryo to a journey map. We had never seen such thing. There were no such thing. We couldn't Google it up, anything. What happened later was that we saw that other people in the world had came to the same conclusion as us, that we have to take the interaction points and just put time between them. And it started to become a customer journey.
Okay.
Now this was a very powerful way for when we were working with Scania at 99, 2000, 2001 to structure their offer, the service offerings, explain them, understand what to prioritize. And we called it, I don't think we call it customer journey. I think we called it like customer flow or something translated to English. Yeah, that was how it started. And from that time, we always did that in all our projects. Whatever we were doing, we had this as the main model.
That's pretty amazing. I really love the part when you're saying it kind of naturally evolved from pure common sense that, okay, we want to improve the time-based interaction of someone, even with a product. Then of course you have to visualize it in a different way, and it's no longer a tangible, concrete at the end product. It's all your interaction through time with that. That in fact reminds me that the first time I tried to do something similar, you're right, and I also didn't get it right, because I had looked at it. There was just like one lane about the customer, and the rest of it all was, what are the internal processes? And it was a yacht manufacturing company based in Dubai. This is about 5 years ago. It's actually interesting. This is the first time I realized that what I made back then was kind of similar to what you're saying. It was just the embryo of, looking at the whole interaction of the customer rather than the end point. Because we also realized that, especially in something like, okay, a toaster is different because it's small and discreet, but a yacht, when someone is having it made, they want to have a lot of interaction with that entire process. They want to, like BMW is doing right now, showing the mini, production and then the whole thing from order right till it gets to you. Something similar to that. So that's really interesting. So in other words, your basic why was because you wanted to see, or you thought that the interactions over a period of time are as important, if not more, than the product itself. Would that be
we understood that the product is the interactions.
Okay.
So it is, and so the different interactions with time between them is actually the product. So when working with financing for a truck or service, maintenance service for a truck, or insurance for truck, or driver training, or those kind of stuff we were working with, the only thing that the customer actually perceives are the different interactions. So we have to work on those and understand how they form a good offering. Do we have the right amount of interactions? Do we have too many interactions where we want where the company wants interactions but the customer don't want any interactions? Do we have other places where the customers want interactions but we are not there as a provider, as a company? I mean, those kind of very, very simple simple things. But pretty quick we found solutions by this way of working that they had never been able to figure that out, and they got business value out of this. So both for us and for them, and then we worked the same way with other clients. It was super clear pretty quick that the business value you get out of this, you can't compare it to the business value of any other ways of understanding the customer. So since then, people that worked with us were customer journey committed. But then what we understood maybe 10 years later was that we missed a part. And that is when we worked with mortgages, for instance, for a bank. And one of the most important part in one customer type when it came to mortgages was to loan financing your housing. It was to talk to someone in your maybe a parent, or so when someone is going to take a loan for this new apartment, they find someone in the social network and ask them, what bank should I choose? How does it work with the loans? What are the risks? That is not a touch point with the bank.
Right.
But it's an extremely important activity in the customer's journey. So what we understood when we started to look back at the many journeys we've done, and we saw that sometimes it kind of failed because we have missed some parts. Then we understood that we can't map touch points. We have to map customers' activities and situations. And situations. So an activity could be talking to a neighbor. A situation could be, I'm sick. I got sick. Well, how do I solve this with my kids today? I mean, that's a situation. It's not a touch point. So we went from mapping touch points as the fundament in the journey to mapping activities and situations as the fundament in the journey, and then map touch points under the activities and situations. And then we understood that now we're not missing, now we are truly customer centric. We are not missing any part in the customer's journey.
That's fascinating. You're right, because if you look at some of the softwares that are developed, at least some of the ones that I'm aware of, they actually, their name is touchpoint. Like touchpoint dashboard, for example. So they're kind of already framing the thing in people's minds that the touchpoint is the starting activity, is the starting point of analysis for you, whereas it's actually the actual activities and steps the customers are taking.
I think it's and I see this is maybe the biggest mistake that people are doing today, mapping touch points, because they don't understand the customer's journey. They just understand the customer journey together with your organization, and that's a huge difference.
Right. Some people would view it as the difference between a journey map and an experience map as well. I mean, I know that's jargon, but I would look at it differently. Fine, experience is not specifically with your brand, but even if you're doing a journey map, you have to look at those non-touch points, even during a purchase transaction or a return transaction. I think you do have to look at all those. But it's amazing because, I've been a student now of this subject matter the last maybe 3-4 years. And it's amazing because we, the young generation, I know my beard is white as well, but in this profession, I'm young, and we're learning from your experiences, and we're, kind of bridging that gap a lot faster, because 10 years from today, maybe I would have also thought, okay, the touch point is the basic point of analysis, but now from your experience as a veteran, we're already kind of, learning a lot faster. And
but that's good. You don't have to do our mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's great, and keeps reminding me of also the generosity which people in this industry have. It's amazing, but some of the most generous people I've met in terms of sharing their time, their knowledge, their information, and even their resources somehow seem to be associated with something which is human-centered, just profession.
I think that the human-centered people, we want to create a better world for people, and if people get a better experience from governments, from organizations in their lives, etc., I mean, then it's good for everyone. It will be a better world. So why would we consider that as confidential? Why not sharing then? Because then you could do the same things that we have managed to do in Scandinavia and in the Nordic countries. So, and that would give a better society. And then I'm happy.
I'm smiling more, Daniel, because I remember I've worked in Ernst & Young. I started off my profession as a chartered accountant, which is number crunching guy. Classic. That's the first thing which comes to mind. And then gradually I shifted towards consulting during my career. But I still remember that I was, if you broadly, they used to, at that time in Ernst & Young, I don't know what the new jargon or what the new models now in HR are, but at that time they used to divide us into two kind of people, a people's person and a task person. And during our appraisals, and every time I'd come up more as a task person, not very people friendly. And believe you me, that when I started actually doing journey mapping, or trying to think of organizations from the customer's perspective, because it made more sense to me, because that is the unit of your analysis as far as the business is concerned. You're in business for your customers, either to create customers or to serve them. That is the basic fundamental unit of analysis. The more and more I started thinking, and the more I got into journey maps, and then I started doing a couple of journey mapping workshops, this profession has actually started changing me, I think. So I have a very profound kind of connection with this profession.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm really enjoying, to be honest. I'm really enjoying that. But Daniel, you mentioned a couple of things. You mentioned then, for example, that we're talking about, making the actions and activities of your customers as the basic point of analysis rather than the touch points, and bring the touch points a couple of levels lower. So how do you typically go about doing that in an organization which has never done this before? Maybe they're doing surveys, and that's the extent of their views. And they've never really mapped the cycle before. So there are challenges now relating to how to convince them it's important, and then the actual act of doing journey mapping and building that final view. So, maybe you could shed a little light on the dynamics of how it's actually done in this situation.
I think that the first step is always to understand the business metrics in this organization. What is valuable? What are they trying to achieve? And the next thing is numbers. Get the numbers. What are the challenges? The business challenges, or if it's governmental, what are they trying to do? I mean, for instance, it could be that get citizens to like this system that we have, this kind of, as in Sweden we have a lot of social insurances, etc. To get people to want to keep on paying tax, want to keep voting and get involved in that. I mean, that's very, very important things, and that people believe that it's equal for everyone. So if the tax is not equal, people won't pay the tax. I mean, so understanding those business figures, either if it's in a business or if it's governmental or whatever it could be. And the next thing is to connect those key metrics to customer experience.
Okay.
And if you can't connect them to customer experience, you shouldn't do any customer experience work there. Then it's better to work somewhere else.
Okay.
So the first thing is to understand their metrics. The next thing is to see how those metrics, some of them connected to customer experience. Could we affect those metrics by doing a better customer experience?
Okay.
And if when you get to that point where you see that maybe we have a lot of churn in this power company, we have a lot of churn, and that is because of experience. Then we could work with the customer experience to lower churn. So if that's the main thing, why not start then working with churn? So that could make the managers understand the power and the connection to their objectives in their roles, what they are trying to achieve. Maybe they have in their balance scorecard to work with churn. So how do you do that then in a good way? Have they tried this? Probably they have tried to do it over the years with a lot of, more brighter CRMs or whatever it could be, or loyalty programs or whatever. And have they managed? Usually they haven't really managed to affect the churn because it's still the same churn. So let's try another way. How about going in the customer shoes? I mean, taking on the customer's glasses and going through our service.
Okay.
If you would have a restaurant, you would definitely go there incognito once in a while to try out your restaurant. Shouldn't we do the same with our service? And then we come to, okay, how do we actually do that? Maybe we have to visualize that in a good way when we go through our service, and then we end up in the customer journey. So that's kind of the arguments going to the customer journey, to understand how this, what we offer is how it's constructed in a way from a customer's perspective. And we know really good from our perspective, our processes, our IT, our rules, regulations we have to consider, everything. But how does it really look from the customer's point of view? I think to reach this understanding and to get the go from those stakeholders, I think for me it has been much more powerful to work with questions. Instead, asking the right questions instead of giving the right answers. The questions, do we really know how it looks to be a client here? Are we really sure of that? To ask this question is much better than just saying, we don't have a clue about how it is. And usually I think it works much better with managers to just ask that question. And then we come to journey mapping. So now you have got you have your stakeholders with you, and we are going to journey map. Then it depends on what customer insights do we have. Is it deep research based, or do we just have assumptions? And I would say it doesn't matter. I see a big mistake, people waiting for very deep, for the next customer survey that we are doing, and we have to do so much research. And I see too many projects kind of dying in the research death. So I think it's much, much better to just start mapping with what you have. And it could be very just maybe wishful thinking that this journey should be like this. We're going from kind of very inside out here. But what happens is that then we and this organization get the concept of journey mapping. And when they have got the concept of journey mapping, they will themselves start to ask, is this accurate? If we are going to change things, it will cost us a lot if we're going to change things with IT coming from this journey. It's accurate. Then it's much, much easier to go and do proper research than to first get them to do proper research to then do journey mapping. It's better to do a assumption-based journey map to see the research lacks that they have, because then you don't have to sell it. You don't have to convince them, because they will understand themselves that we have just this is just an assumption. We have to get deeper research here. Okay, then it's time to do that, and redo the journey map after that.
No, that's really powerful, actually. So what you're saying in a nutshell is, if I can summarize it in find the business context first. There has to be a challenge area, which is driven by, of course, some form of metrics. So what is the challenge area that organization faces? Then ask them questions around that challenge area of why they think that it hasn't worked so far. And then introduce the idea of, okay, so, I mean, do we understand how the customer is perceiving this? If it hasn't so far worked in your way, is there a different way of trying to approach the problem? And one of those suggestions is then, okay, do we have an idea of how the customer is experiencing the issues and your I'm sorry to use the word touch points right now, but okay, what is their interaction with you, and why exactly do you think this churn is happening, for example? And to lead them towards wanting to understand the customer experience themselves, and then not to wait for any kind of necessarily like end-to-end data and insight and research and VOC that you have, but to start with what they understand of their current, they meaning the stakeholders and their and the rest of the colleagues understand of the current experience as it works. And then once you get into it, they themselves start questioning, okay, do we know enough in certain areas? Do we need to know more? Or are we fairly sure about certain areas? So it's always driven by questioning rather than offering solutions.
Yes.
And but the fundamental building block always is that they have to have, in your experience so far then, does it work with people who are product centric as well? Or do they already have to have some kind of a pre-wired mind that I'm in this business because my customers have a certain problem that they need to resolve with us? What's your experience been in that space? Does that make sense? Does the question make sense?
Yeah,
or you'll have
yes,
all kinds.
yes, it do. I think it's hard to work with 100% product-centric people. There are many of those in all organizations, and they are very important, but they have to team up with more customer-focused people. I don't think that. I mean, those organizations that let the product people be the only powerful voices internally, they are usually not that successful, and so sooner or later they come to a situation where they have to consider the customer in relation to our products. So okay. That is why I said that you have to start with the KPIs. If they only have product connected metrics that matters internally, you should leave them. Don't put any time in trying to convince them. They have to come to that conclusion themselves, that the products are solving problems for their clients.
Okay.
The products, they don't do products because it's fun. They do products to solve a customer problem. And if they don't want to work with that interaction, it's better to put your effort somewhere else. I have tried this. I have tried several times to convince product-focused organizations, and I have really spent too many hours times month on that, and I will never do that again, because it's better to wait for them to understand that themselves, because sooner or later competitors will do it, or this industry will dramatically change, or maybe they can't compete with a unique product anymore because they have competitors doing very similar products. It's better to wait until they understand the customer necessity of being customer centric themselves. But I think that the way you explain the different stages through here, I think that's really the best practice, to do it that way, exactly as you explained it.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to ask you a tip, Daniel, for myself personally, for Epic, for Sadia and myself, because we're going through, we've burnt our fingers with some of these organizations that you're talking about, and but I'm still trying to get a grip of what would be the best way for me to identify such an organization without burning too much time with them. So, there are various places where we talk about, typical symptoms and indicators of an organization which is product specific or product centric, compared to an organization which is customer centric. Do you have any?
I used to look at how do people do their careers in this organization. If the CEO is a tech guy, then only he or she is recruited only on technical or product development merits, and this organization usually have those kind of people as CEO. Repeatedly, it's only product people and they have never been in their career. They have never been on their market and sales side, or maybe in a customer success thing or something. Then that's 100% product focused organization. So you could look on how people go up in their slow careers in those organizations, and if you see that the only way to become a CEO in this organization is to have 1 foot in customer part and 1 foot in product part, then it's a good organization to work with.
Okay.
So I think that's a good way to see it. You could also look a little bit on on recruiting. Who are they recruiting right now? That describes a lot of their problems. Are they recruiting people on the customer side? Then it's time for you to go there.
Right. Or are they recruiting more accountants to count the beans?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
It's interesting. We've been trying to, we have a certain conviction in a school's mission. It seems that the school doesn't have the same kind of conviction, in the message that they're trying to propagate. Yeah, so we approached them a couple of times, and now that you're saying all of this, I remember one time I was reading a flyer about the new year which was starting over there and what all the school is going to do, and like a principal's letter of what is going to happen in the next year. And it was all about introducing new kind of tests and new kind of subject as well, and new curriculum parts. And at the very end, there was just like a one-liner about the parent-teacher committee. And if I now think back on the experiences I've had with them, and I read that letter in front of my mind's eye, it's like 95% they're thinking about their product, and 5% they're thinking about the customer. Yeah. Although the customer is the student as well. Students and educational environments are fairly complex, I think. But so it was really interesting that this conversation just reminded me of that.
Yeah. I think another way is actually I think all organizations say that they care about the customer. They say that they put the customers first. A good way to understand if they really do is to ask them, okay, how do you do that? Who is responsible for the experience here? And when they say, no one, everybody, then they don't care. Yeah. So that's also a good way to understand. And when asking those questions, who is responsible for that? How do you make sure? What processes do you actually have to make sure that you put the customer center?
Right.
That will definitely stress them because they don't want you to ask that question.
Yeah. We'll start changing. Yeah, that's great tips, Daniel. I mean, we've gone beyond the agenda of what we had, but that's really, really useful insight. And it's directly impacting us. So thanks again. But of course, we want to share that with the rest of the world as well. So in your experiences then, Daniel, coming towards the end, let's spend another 5-10 minutes if that's okay with you, because this is so insightful right now. But what are the key outcomes and benefits that you see from some of the projects that you've done with within your own organization, with your initial organization, Carnia, and your clients as well? What are kind of the key benefits that you see them realizing from the journey mapping activity itself?
I mean, as you said in the beginning, I've been working as a consultant for almost 20 years. And then I started to develop Castellans, this online tool for journey mapping. In 2014, something we started. And since 1.5 years, I have left the consultancy company. So I'm only working with Castellans. So I see when we do customer success together with our Castellans clients, we are not there as consultants, but I see a lot of things that they accomplish, changes they manage to do through using Castellans and journey mapping. And what I see as the first things they achieve, I would say, is to create a shared common view across silos. I would say that is, and they have been trying to break up silos. They have read all the books about breaking up silos. I mean, everybody has been trying to do that for so long, but the customer journeys truly break up those silos, and people start to collaborate across different departments. I would say that is the first very powerful outcome. Then they understand what to prioritize, and usually people have been thinking of customer centric, customer centric, is that we have to do more things.
Okay.
So we do things in our organizations, and now we start to work customer-centric. So now we have to do even more. I think one of the first outcomes is that they understand what they could stop do, because they do a lot of things which the customer doesn't care about. There's so much waste in the development and in the operations, in the contact with the customer, that the customer doesn't care about that. So they could stop do that.
Right. So
I think that's a kind of a mind-changing thing, that people think, okay, now we have to start doing even more. Yeah, that's good, but first understand what you could stop do.
That's very powerful, especially in a world where we're all the time driven to cut costs.
Yeah.
So if we're actually able to prioritize and remove the flab surgically using journey mapping, that's a huge win, especially in the finance and accounting department's eyes.
Yes. Yeah.
Because those are the first people who, those are always the skeptics around something fluffy like customer journey.
Yeah. And then that's super powerful to just get rid of those and see that you haven't, the customer is still usually as unhappy as they were before, but now we could start to work with things to make an even better experience.
Yeah, you could actually use those funds diverted from cost cutting into the measures which will actually improve the experience without hurting leaving the same level of dissatisfaction.
Yes. So, and I think another outcome in the early stages is that organizations think that they don't have any costs connected to bad experience, so they have to do a business case on doing a better experience. So if we're going to work with experience, they want to see a business case on the better experience. But it's super easy to make the business case on their cost today that renders from bad experience. So usually they have to handle an average insurance company. Half of the incoming interactions are not driven by a customer need. It's driven by this insurance company doing bad things in their interactions that makes the customer have to get in contact with them. And I see in average, it's half of the contacts. So those are driven by unnecessary needs. So if they could get rid of half of those, they have saved so much time and money. And that's a kind of a misconception of experience, that they think that customer experience will drive cost. No, it won't. It will save them a lot of money in the first place. So then those are very clear outcomes, I would say. And then later on, of course, they get the outcomes of better net promoter score. They get lower their churn. They could charge the client more because they appreciate the product. They don't want to shame the product. They don't compare it that much with other products. So they're both on the cost cutting side and on the income and earning side, and also on the market share side. So they get effects everywhere.
Yeah, but I guess it also makes sense to actually approach them from that angle of prioritizing and the cost of bad experience. Because that's something which will immediately appeal to them. Still, you have stubborn cases.
But that's
where the silos comes in. I think it's about something that I've in fact recently gone through in one of your own lessons in the perfect map is about mandates. So if you're going to talk to someone about a mandate where he has to break like 10 silos before he can make any impact, he won't go in that direction. He won't even budge. So as long as that prioritizing and cost cutting is happening within his own mandate, he'll probably jump at that opportunity. And that's very similar to remember the map that I put on for the digital, for the bank? That bank, by the way, it came back and said, listen, we don't want to do journey mapping per se, but we want to actually engage you in our digital transformation program. And I said, listen, I don't do digital transformation, but I'll definitely find the right partners to get it done. if you're going in that direction and if you want to use journey mapping for that purpose. But when you go into that journey map, you realize, number one, that they could have saved the cost of all those 43 interactions that I had with maybe in 3 or 4 steps. So all that cost could have been cut, number one. Number two, it was cutting across silos, and a lot of the interactions were non-digital. They were actually in the call center or with the relationship manager at the branch. It wasn't really the digital interactions that were causing the problem to start with. So
That's
a lot of times I see organizations just jumping on the bandwagon of going digital without realizing or understanding how is their experience today. Is it really that digital that you need to understand the digitalization as fast, or do you first just need to look at the end-to-end what's happening?
I totally agree. I have to mention another outcome that many organizations don't think about, and that is the people in frontline in most organizations. If you have unhappy customers, it's not that pleasant to work in frontline.
Yes.
So,
true.
And it's a huge cost usually for organizations to train new people, to attract new people, instead of having happy people working in frontline, giving a good experience and working there year after year and being happy. And I think that many organizations, they forget the power of taking care of your employees by creating a better customer experience. And there's a lot of money into taking care of your employees.
Yeah. Well, so true. And I think it can even be extended. So not only it directly extends into actually, because whenever you do any kind of customer experience improvement, probably the first set of artifacts, sorry to call them artifacts, but the first layer that you probably have to fix is not fix is also a wrong term, but is to help your employees look at things differently. That is if, of course, the top management starts looking at things differently as well. And so you're improving the customer experience, at the same time, the employee experience, and at the same time, probably saving costs on a lot of HR costs. It's fascinating because the one of the first people in the UAE, by the way, in Dubai, who started doing journey mapping were at a large scale were Emirates Airlines, and they I don't know, you might have heard this before, but they actually built the use case that they had, that their journey mapping evolved into very quickly, was actually training their multicultural employees. So they actually had a huge floor with the whole interaction of the customer, how he gets the ticket, how he's boarding, how he's in the plane, on a huge floor, and they used to train their employees using that entire journey map. And that became the biggest use case over there for the experience management journey mapping team. Hopefully we'll get that gentleman on board as well in this video cast series at some point. But Daniel, this is really amazing. Okay, last but not least, Daniel, I'd like to ask you, and I think you've already given us so many trinkets in between that if someone just heard this, they'd be able to get this information from this entire recording. But if we wanted to summarize for someone new to journey mapping, how should they get started? What would your top 3 tips be? You've given a lot, but if you just kind of sit back and say, okay, these are the top 3 tips I'd want to give them if they wanted to start within their own organization.
We have a very good go-through manual on the Castellans. We try to be very, very generous with know-how there. So on Castellans.com, it's a good source for a lot of the different stages you could be in. For instance, convincing stakeholders or how to start mapping. I would go there. And the next thing I would do when you have got your stakeholders with you, and when going back to getting stakeholders with you, work with questions instead of working with answers. And then when starting journey mapping, on the customer's webpage, if you sign up for if there's a free account, then you have a lot of templates there. If you start with a service blueprint template, then you get the whole stack of lanes, and you understand kind of the concept of journey mapping, different touch points. What do we do of this? Well, how do we take this down to innovation processes? And it's pretty good explained also. So there you have a good template to start playing around with, I would say. And the next tip is to not wait for customer insights. Start with what you have. And when you have started with what you have, the sooner you start to share this, the better. We see what determines a very successful project is that the people there have started to share it as early as possible. Just share it in the organization, get people involved, not working behind a closed door, but just share and share and share and share and share.
All right. Okay. And I think that in Castellans, you can actually share the maps without having anyone just sharing the maps directly with everyone, right? I mean, you can just have just them come and see the map, and
they just go in there, they have a look, they will get a lot of questions. They will go back to you with the questions. You will answer those questions. You are then getting a wider team engaged in pushing things forward. And it's so very, very clear in Castellans that the teams that share a lot, those are the successful teams.
Okay. And
then when sooner in this process, the last tip is to not try to you will see a lot of things in the journey map that has to be fixed in your offer or in your new offers or what it could be. I think a mistake that people do is that to try to fix the most important things. I think it's better to fix the things where you could affect the KPIs, the measurements quickest. So maybe it's not the most important thing from a customer perspective. Maybe it's not the biggest pain points. But what you need now is your case. You have to build your case, and you have to do it by not convincing people, but by showing results. So take in your journey where you see you have very low points or emotional experience low points, take the one where it's easiest to get things done and get it out to the customers instead of taking the most important ones. Because when you have showed result, then you can go with the most important ones.
It becomes easier and easier. It becomes a snowball effect then.
Yes. Yeah. So those are my main tips. And if you follow those, I think you will manage well. And if you don't, just contact me on LinkedIn and tell me what went wrong.
Definitely. I think, as I think back to some of the experiences I have had with clients, I can easily relate to some of those tips and wish I could go back and fix them now. But going forward, I think, once again, Daniel, I think, a true veteran, thank you so much. You've given us so much insight in this short period of time. I feel reinvigorated to go out to market again, by the way. So
lovely to hear. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
The energy is definitely flowing. Thanks for that. And would you mind, by the way, once we, I'm sure that, once there are people who have questions, of course, they would want to visit Castellans, but they will have subsequent questions. This is going to be on our YouTube channel, of course. This is on our YouTube channel, in fact. So would it be okay if people can reach out to you on that channel as well?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, yeah. We'll try to give you a link as well over there. They can directly contact you. They don't necessarily have to get stuck on that channel itself. But if they have questions there, we can direct them your way.
Yeah. Put a link to me. I mean, it could go through LinkedIn, or I think maybe LinkedIn is the best way to connect there, and also directly to Castellans. I think to have links to Castellans so they could find things there, and of course.
I still have to go and cheat on those resources myself as well. I've learned so much from you, from the courses, from the past experience, and from today's session. And you've already reminded me that there's something else to look at as well. So
thank you. Thanks for having me, and a nice discussion.
It was really been a pleasure, honor, and very